All right, so today we're doing something a little bit different.
Right.
We're going in on this book you flagged, Homo Deus,
Oh, yeah.
by Yuval Noah Harari.
I'm excited to dive into this one.
Have you read this one before?
I have not read it. I've heard a lot about it, though.
Yeah, it's one of those books that really, like, makes you rethink the future.
I'm ready?
Not in like a flying cars kind of way, but more like, what does it even mean to be human in the 21st century?
Yeah.
So we're going to dig into your notes, pull out the most interesting stuff, kind of a deep dive into Harari's like main arguments.
Okay.
Sound good?
That's great.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
So one of the first things that really jumped out, at least to me, was how Harari uses history.
Yeah.
And I mean like really long view history to kind of set the stage, right? Like he starts by talking about how us humans, we've gotten pretty good at dealing with like the things that used to completely wipe us out.
Totally.
Famine, plagues, even war to some extent.
Yeah, what's wild is he uses all these examples from the past. Like, he talks about 17th century France, where people were literally starving to death, eating, like, anything they could get their hands on.
Oh, yeah.
Cats, dead horses, you name it. And then he compares that to, like, the Ebola outbreak in 2014. Obviously a terrible, tragedy.
Right.
But it was contained, right? Nothing like the Spanish flu a century ago that wiped out millions.
Exactly. It's like he's not saying these problems have magically disappeared,
Yeah.
but that something fundamental has shifted.
Right.
Like the way we deal with these huge existential threats.
And he argues that technology has a lot to do with it. Globalization, advances in healthcare. It's like we've changed the game.
It's true. It's like we've leveled up as a species or something.
Right. But then that leads to this other question, right?
Okay.
If we've gotten a handle on these big problems, what new challenges have popped up to take their place? What are the things we haven't even thought of yet?
Which leads perfectly into his next point, which is that technology is kind of the biggest game changer right now in a way that like we haven't really grasped yet,
Yeah, and he's talking about some pretty mind-blowing stuff. Artificial intelligence, bioengineering.
Yeah.
It's not just like cool gadgets anymore. It's forcing us to confront some seriously big ethical choices.
It's like all those sci-fi movies where the robots become self-aware and suddenly humans are the ones in trouble.
It really makes you think, what happens to free will in a world where algorithms are calling the shots?
Right. What makes us so special then?
And Harari doesn't shy away from that. He wants us to face these questions head on, even if they make us uncomfortable.
It's like we're on the verge of becoming the gods we used to pray to, but without a clue what we're doing, which is honestly kind of terrifying.
It is. And that fear of the unknown, I think that's where dataism comes in, which is this whole other can of worms he opens up.
Oh yeah, deism. It's like he's saying the universe is just this giant stream of data. And the most important thing is being able to, like, process it all, make sense of it.
Right. And that challenges, like, everything.
Our values, our beliefs,
Yeah.
even how we see our place in the universe.
Exactly. It's a total mind shift. He makes this fascinating comparison, too, how ancient civilizations used gods to explain stuff they didn't understand, like lightning, storms, all of that.
And now we've got algorithms for that, right?
Exactly. Weather apps, financial models, even dating sites. It's like algorithms are the new gods, in a way.
It's a new way of looking at the world for sure, but is it a good thing? That's the big question, right? So we're talking about like this massive shift in how we see the world, right? From human experience being everything to like data being the ultimate power. How does Harari see this dataism thing actually playing out in our lives?
Well, he brings up this idea that we're already like handing over control in a lot of ways, Decisions we used to make ourselves, now we're letting algorithms handle them.
Like with those self-driving cars we were talking about.
Exactly. I mean, think about it, like where to go, how to get there, even how fast to drive. We used to stress over that stuff.
Right. Like road rage, gone.
Well, maybe not. But the point is, an algorithm can probably figure it out way more efficiently than we ever could. And that's where things get kind of weird, right?
It challenges our whole idea of free will.
Right, totally. If an algorithm can predict our choices better than we can, what does that even mean for us as individuals? Are we really in control, or are we just like following the data? It's a mind bender for sure.
It's like our brains weren't meant to process this stuff,
And it changes our whole relationship with history too, right? Like we used to have stories, myths, religions to make sense of the world. Now it's all about data points, algorithms, cold, hard facts, maybe.
It's that comparison again, right? Ancient civilizations had gods to explain lightning, and now we've got weather apps.
Right. And it's not just the weather, it's the stock market, it's who you date, it's everything. So Are we basically replacing gods with algorithms? Is that what he's getting at?
I mean, it's a provocative thought, but he's careful not to call deism a religion, right? It's more like a new way of seeing the universe, a new lens, and that lens is everywhere. But if we're not in the driver's seat anymore, if we're not calling the shots, what does it even mean to be human in this crazy algorithm-driven future?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And this is where I actually found Harari surprisingly optimistic. He doesn't think we're doomed, you know.
Okay, so he's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all. He actually sees this whole tech revolution as like this huge opportunity, a chance to redefine what it means to be human.
Okay, so how do we do that? Like, do we all need to become coding geniuses or something?
Not necessarily. He talks about how we need new skills to thrive in this world that's swimming in data, right? Being able to think critically about information, understanding how algorithms work, but also, and this is important, our emotional intelligence. That's something algorithms can't replicate.
So it's not about becoming robots ourselves, but about being, like, more well-rounded, more adaptable humans.
Exactly. The future belongs to those who can, like, roll with the punches, you know?
Yeah.
Use the power of technology without losing our humanity in the process.
And he's a big believer in cooperation, right? Like, the more powerful this tech gets, the more important it is that we work together.
Absolutely. He says that, you know, throughout history, cooperation has been key, whether we're talking about war, politics, whatever. But now, with algorithms in the mix, human connection, that shared experience, it becomes even more vital.
So it's not just about, like, us versus the machines.
Not at all. Harari actually thinks we can use this technology to create a better world, a fairer world, but it's going to take effort. It's going to take all of us working together.
It's like we're standing on the edge of something huge, right? Either tech takes over or we figure out how to use it for good. No pressure or anything.
Right. But he also brings up this other, like, really important point, which is that this whole tech revolution could actually make inequality even worse.
Oh, right, because not everyone's going to have access to these incredible advancements.
Exactly. Like, he talks about genetic testing, bioengineering. That stuff is expensive, at least for now.
It's like creating a world where the rich can literally buy themselves a better future while everyone else is stuck dealing with the same old problems.
And he uses Angelina Jolie as an example again, right? Those genetic tests she had. Those cost a fortune, something most people can never afford.
So how do we fix that? Like, should we be protesting Google or something?
He doesn't really offer any easy answers, which, you know, can be frustrating. But he does say that we need to be having these conversations, right? We need to make sure these benefits are shared. Better education, access to healthcare, policies that actually fight economic injustice.
So it's about opportunity,
Yeah.
right? Making sure everyone has a chance to benefit from these advances, not just the wealthy.
Exactly. He's not talking about some perfect utopia or anything. He just wants a fairer, more sustainable world. Which, let's be honest, that's a pretty tall order these days.
It is, and it's going to require us to rethink some pretty fundamental ideas. Like, what if happiness isn't the be-all and end-all of life?
That's an interesting one, right? Because isn't that what we're all striving for? Happiness.
It seems like it.
Well, Harari argues that constantly chasing happiness can actually backfire. It's fleeting, you know, it comes and goes. He thinks we should be aiming for something deeper, something more meaningful.
Like what? Give me an example.
He talks about purpose, finding something that gives your life meaning, even if it's not always easy, even if it doesn't always make you happy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But in a world where everything's changing so fast, where the old rules don't apply, how are we supposed to find that? How do we find meaning when everything's so uncertain?
That's where Harari gets really, I think, profound. He says we have to create our own meaning. We have to define it for ourselves based on our values, our experiences.
It's like we're all on this quest to find our own path, right? But the map's constantly changing.
And there's no Google Maps for this.
Right. No algorithm to tell you what your purpose in life is.
Although knowing algorithms, they're probably working on it. But Harari's point is we shouldn't be afraid of that uncertainty. In fact, he says we should embrace it.
Embrace the unknown. That's a tough one, especially when you think about, like, just how much information is thrown at us every single day. It's overwhelming.
It really is. He actually calls information overload a new form of censorship.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it like that.
It's like in the old days, they censored by hiding information, right?
Man.
They bury us in it. So much noise, so much data, it's almost impossible to figure out what's real, what's important.
So how do we cut through all that? How do we find those meaningful signals in all the data smog?
That's where discernment comes in. Being able to filter out the junk, to focus on what really matters.
And that takes effort, right? It's not just going to happen automatically.
Right. It's about being mindful, intentional, questioning everything, even our own biases.
Oh, that's a good point. Like, what are we choosing to believe and why?
Exactly. And it's about finding your own voice, amidst all the chaos, not letting yourself be defined by algorithms, by social media, by anyone.
So we're curating our own experiences, choosing our own adventures. That actually sounds kind of exciting.
Right. And this is where I think Harari's message really resonates, because even with all this talk about technology, about algorithms, about the future, he keeps coming back to this idea.
What's that?
Human connection. It matters more than ever.
Because robots can't give you a hug.
Exactly. As technology gets more advanced, I think our ability to connect with each other on a deeper level, to empathize, to share our experiences, that's what makes us human. That's what gives life meaning.
So it's about finding that balance, the logic of algorithms,
Right.
but also the warmth, the empathy, the messy, beautiful reality of being human.
Perfectly said. And the really cool part is we're not alone in this. We're part of this incredible story, this human story that's been going on for like a millennia.
So even though the future's a bit of a question mark, we can draw strength from the past, from all those who came before us.
That's the beauty of it. Humans are incredibly resilient. We adapt, we overcome, we find a way forward. And that's what gives me hope, even when things feel, totally overwhelming.
Well, this deep dive into Homo Deus has been a lot to process.
Yeah.
It's exciting, it's terrifying, it definitely makes you
A
think.
super call to action, I think.
It is. So to everyone listening, like, what are you going to choose to focus on? Will you let the data tsunami sweep you away, or are you going to chart your own course?
Will you hold on to your humanity in this age of algorithms?
Big questions, and like you said, no easy answers.
But that's the point, right? Harari wants us to think for ourselves, to wrestle with these ideas, to shape the future we want to see.
And remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. We create it every single day with the choices we make.
So choose wisely.
Choose bravely and keep asking those big, tough questions.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.